Okay, we are all researchers at the Northwest University, the Potchefstroom campus. On my right side is Kathleen. She has worked with Vera for quite some time. She is now busy with a PhD. She also did an internship at the Northwest University. And then I'm Lilani. I am currently the intern at this department. I'm working under Vera and I'm doing various research projects. And then I have Professor Vera Part1 on my left, and she's a researcher at this university, and she has done a number of things. I think I can't even count everything on my fingers. So yeah, and then we have Patricia. She's currently at the Mafeking campus. She was also an intern in research psychology last year at this university on this campus, working under Vera Part1 as well. And then we have Shinga, who just completed her PhD, also supervised by Vera Part1, and she's going to work at the university. So
yeah. I think my relationship with you dates back to 2006, when we first started doing research together, myself as an honor student, a young slate that you could paint on, but also intrigued me into the opportunity of conducting research as opposed to other traditional courses that psychology take and that I just wasn't cut out for. So when you appeared on the scene, it was like, whew, okay, research is an option. Thank goodness. So I'm very grateful for having been able to walk so long with you in my development as an academic and a researcher, but also as a person.
I remember that was the year that there was a big honors group and they combined research, qualitative research with community psychology.
Yes, yes, that's true.
Yeah. And that is still...
That's the beginnings of the MOCO as well.
Yeah.
So I was there from the start.
No, we actually were, because we published the first MOCO article in 2009. That was the first publication. But up to the... Maybe I could just give a little bit of feedback. I don't know if you're aware of the MOCO, where it started. When I was at the University of Pretoria, there was Dr. Karina van Dijk, who started with the MOCO method, but she called it then the Ingenieuze structured technique. And what it consisted of is using unstructured material like clay and beads, straws, and asking people an unstructured question. But then the MOCO and the Ingenieuze did this. She used a very structured way of analyzing the data obtained from the visual presentations that the people made. For example, on a little disc, you had to indicate if this image is a typical traditional image or is it a more westernized image. And it was quite difficult for me to distinguish what kind of image it is, and the participants were not allowed to talk. And I felt quite limited in that kind of exploration. And from there I decided people must talk, I want to understand. And even if I can't understand, use the individual image as a way of understanding what they have constructed and as an avenue of getting more information.
Yeah, the freedom of development, the way that it opened up for us was just absolutely beautiful to see. And it's something that hasn't depleted over the years. It's something that we continually find. How you can really dig into the quality of people's perceptions and their experiences. I know, Shiva, you mentioned some of the many projects that we did and our enactment with the community. I don't know if you'd like to tell us more about
I still remember very well. My very first one was in 2007 when I started my master's research. When we went to Panisa and Tosca. That was really a good experience for me because it was my first research field work that time. And Prof. Ruiz introduced us to this MOCO method, collecting data through the MOCO method. And it was really interesting because we're talking about the older person's experiences on drought. So they were reflecting that through the MOCO method, building models using the materials that I used on MOCO method. And the amount of data that we gathered, it was really impressive and interesting to hear the people talking about what they have built. And I think, like she's saying, that the first one, the English was not, people were not allowed to talk at all, but with this MOCO method, it gives the participants more way of representing themselves through the things that they have built. So it's really exciting, and it was really exciting going through the exercise for the participants.
How I've come to see the method is it's much like study methods for different students. It allows every person to express themselves in a way they are comfortable with. Initially, you have abstract ideas and concepts put in front of you. You start talking about what's in front of you, which is much easier than to express your thoughts sometimes. It's very non-threatening. It's very, you put into it what you don't even know. This reveals something to you as well as the researcher. And it was just wonderful to see the different ways of expression, the different ways in which we could gain an understanding. You could literally see what a person was trying to tell you as well as hear it and feel it.
What happened in the honors group this year, that was quite interesting. They made the visual presentations of their experiences of their relationship with older people. And it is now in May, and some of the students will still talk about how they reflect on that experience and also what they come to know better of themselves. So it's a way of reflecting, and it's also a lasting impact that this method has on them. But the visual images, the expression, the emotional expression of the visual images makes it, I think, the real value, so that you can actually see some of the things that you're not aware of.
It's very tangible.
The first time that I was involved with the MOCO was, I think, in 2009 as well, about the migrants. Yeah, I was with on that. I was in my honors year, and yeah, Vera invited us to go along, and I went to Sandton where this project was, and it was interesting. Now, how the migrants used the MOCO and how they interpreted what they had to do, and the models that they made as an African culture, the things that they illustrated in their models. And this year we made it with the older persons, which was mostly white older persons coming from a more Afrikaans background. The things that they made, although the research study was completely different, the uniqueness of its culture and how it can be used amongst different cultures is something that's really amazing to me. How different cultures can still understand and make sense of these models, and how they interpret whatever the question is and project it on these models. It was really interesting how they did. I really think that's great, how it can be used amongst different cultures as well.
Yeah, with me, the first time I met Prof. Rose, it was in 2007, and by then I was doing, I was working with her, doing community psychology, and at that time we were doing internship as a group from Botswana. And I remember the first time we learned about the MOCO method, we were just told that we are going to have some interview, and I was like, what kind of interview that we're going to do? And we're getting about the interview. We don't want to go through this thing. What is the data collection? And it's like we didn't like it. We were thinking of questionnaires and all this stuff. And we really hated it. I remember we were a group of 18, if I'm not mistaken. One South African and 17 Botswanas. So we were there waiting, and as we were waiting, somebody came with all this, and we started laughing and saying, do they think we are kids? So they brought this in front of us and tell us, just come, think of something and just lay it down. Think of your own culture, then just show us using these visuals and make a visual presentation using all these objects. And we laughed again. Then it's like they just left us there. We started talking, laughing. At the end of the day, there were beautiful pictures, presentations, models in front of us. I actually didn't know what to do, didn't know what to make. I was looking at others trying to copy. I would look at this one and that. But at the end of the day, what I realized, most of us had copied what other, it's like, as participants, we copied, we looked at what the other one was doing, modeling, and then we tried to do the same thing. But then it came whereby now the researchers were asking us questions. What is it that you have made? What came into your mind? How do you link it with your culture? That's when we started speaking. And with me, what I did was like, I made a journey of myself from a young girl up to the time I came to university. Because that is what I was talking about. And there was this other guy who modeled a kotla, whereby we started talking about this kotla, like how do we behave when we are culturally as Botswanas, what is it supposed to be done? And as we were talking about it, we became so excited, we thought of home, it was so enjoyable. I want to tell you, it was so enjoyable. When we came out of that place, we were relaxed. The first thing that I realized, we were relaxed. We talked about home. We thought about, we learned about our different cultures, even though we were all the Botswanas, but we came from different places. So we started learning about how, because we could argue of some things, no, but this is how we do it. Others will say this is how we do it. So we immediately at that point, we learned about each other's culture in the single Moho presentation or session, which lasted about like an hour and some few minutes. So really, that is how I got so motivated with the Moho. And then the other time that I got so attached to the Moho method was when I was doing my research last year. Like this, people were talking, the elderly people were talking about, because my topic was, I wanted to check their sense of belonging using the Moho method, where they belong. Is it from the past place they used to stay or within the current place that they were staying? So now, as they were talking, it helped me a lot, because I myself started to realize, oh, this is where I belong. I realized where I belong. I realized that I don't actually belong where I'm coming from. According to what I was listening as they were talking, I started learning more about myself, more than they were talking about. It's like I collected data from them, but as they were talking, I started, they revealed some things that were within me. And then I started realizing this is where I belong. Because of acting like this one is saying, they were telling me 1, 2, 3. It means I've been thinking this way as well. It means I belong there. Then I started knowing myself. And I don't think if it was just a mere good discussion, it could have done that to that extent. So one thing that I like most about the Moho method that helped me realize myself, it emphasizes more on the member checking technique. That is one thing that I realized is so valid about the Moho method. That makes even the researcher to learn more on yourself.
Actually, this is where my interest started with this group of students, because I saw so many things changed in their lives on an academic level, a social level. They came to Potchefstroom, there was a lot of discrimination and racism towards this group of people. And I realized something happened to them, but I'm not sure what. So I asked them in the group, please tell me what your experience is. And they said, no, it's fine, it's good. I said, but what is fun, what is good? No, we like it here. But I couldn't get to understand what. And I said to them, you had a lot of challenges. You left your family for a whole year, you came to a different context, you were scared initially because they were close to Johannesburg, they thought there's a lot of crime in here. And I said to them, but I could see that you developed, and I could see that something happened to you, but I can't understand what enabled you to cope with this. So through this, we could see there was a lot of support, there was a lot of understanding what your goals are and work towards that. And it just revealed so many more things that we anticipated.
I remember specifically what you guys contributed. At the beginning of the session, many of the students said they're coming here to get something because they feel they're empty. They're coming to get knowledge. And by the middle of the session, we were already focused on the contributions and everything that you brought with you to this experience. And that was just beautiful to see how people acknowledge their own worth, their own ability, their own creativity in being there and having taken all those large steps and overcoming all the obstacles into what else they can discover while they're here.
Yeah, one other thing that I discovered with the mobile method that is very good, when we were doing this Golden Kuma project last year, we were dealing with a sensitive group of people. There would be, some of them would just become so angry and so good and talk loudly. And one thing that I realized is that the mobile method is able to allow somebody to take out your feelings, to reveal. It's more, even if we term it to be a data collection method. To me, it's like it can go to an extent of both data collection and therapy. Because that is what I've realized with those people. In the same section, in one session, let me say, they were telling us what they need, they want to see being done. And they were revealing the emotions of how they've been treated. They were revealing the emotions, it's like they wanted, even within themselves, they wanted to quarrel about what they want and what they don't want. But the Moho method still brought in some kind of bringing togetherness. Because I remember at one point, after they've been discussing on some issues, it's like when we get to another presentation, somebody would say, I've modeled, this is a woman, I'm just giving an example, like this is a well, this is this, and the others will look at it and say, this? Is it what you are calling it? And they start laughing. The moment they start laughing, it's like it breaks that tension that was there. They become relaxed and they get away from the tension part of the session, and then they start like communicating again in a calm way. It's like the presentations themselves, they make others, they make colleagues to laugh. Because I'm saying this because I started participating as a participant, not as a researcher, even though now wherever I go, I'm talking about it as a researcher now. I know the feeling. It calms you down. Even if one thing can come up that arouses your feeling, that feelings of anger, feelings of something. At the end of the day, when you look at somebody modeling so funny, and it's like he calls it something that you never thought she would say. It looks like fish. And then the person would say, no, this is a human being, or this is a cow. We start laughing, and immediately we are calmed down, and we look at others, and we laugh, and it's kind of therapy when it's done.
I think that makes me also aware of how much you elicit from people, because it is based on the principles of projection, and that's how I think it's so necessary that you have to take a lot of precautionary actions when you do the model. I think of your research, you could really have so much emotions. But we ask people about the loneliness in the residential care facility, and I really think that elicited the way that we have conducted the research. So you have to be very careful when you just use this method, because you can elicit a lot of unforeseen consequences and emotions in your way of doing research. I think in any case you should be sensitive towards people, but in this case so much more.
I remember when we did a workshop together with caretakers of older persons, and there were so many emotions that came out of that session. I was just so grateful for Professor and her training as a clinical psychologist, because me being plainly trained as a research psychologist was out of my depth. So it's very important to know exactly where you stand in terms of what you are able to do and in terms of what you expect to happen, and take the necessary precautions. It's a culturally sensitive method, yes, It's a very uninvasive technique, yes, but whenever you work with people, you connect with emotions as well, and you don't know what you can trigger. So it's very important to be very well prepared.
Yeah, I think just the emotions from my research that came out just, says again or just emphasizes again how deep the Morkel method actually goes into really experiences and how people perceive certain things. So it's really, really deep, and it was difficult to have the line sometimes in terms of knowing how to handle certain emotions. What I saw as well with the Morkel method in my research is that, and with the older persons as well in this intergenerational project that we did, was older persons usually, they don't always feel valued living in residential care facilities. But you asking them to make a model and you value that which they have made, there's kind of and that's where I want to connect with what Patricia said, that it's really therapy based as well, because for a moment they're actually valued in what they did, the model that they made. Somebody is interested in knowing something more about what they've made, about their experiences. And I think it's because it's so personal, it's something about yourself that you're projecting on something else. So it's very, very personal, but I think very therapeutic when it comes to being valued, and that's what I've seen amongst the older persons, especially.
In terms of this creating a space for someone to express themselves without limitations, it's a wonderful technique. You can really dig into something, but it really creates a space for someone just to be who they are, amidst people whom they sometimes don't know that well. While they're around the table with the same materials, they're equals in creating something that's meaningful to them.
What I also realized is not to destroy the video presentations in front of the participants, because in the Eastern Free State, the guys were so upset, and then we realized, it's something so personal. We cannot distract and take the materials along. So yes, they got very upset. So what we do now is we give them. You were very upset. So we give now the visual images along with the participants, because I also think that's part of the experience, so that we don't disregard. I think that is what you said. We don't disregard what they have made. We actually value it. Yes. But it's also interesting. I recently learned about the interactive method of systematic analysis. I also heard about that, and I really think I'm going to try and see how you can then take up the themes and then put themes in relationship with one another, and see how you can build your theory around that model that you have obtained the data from. Yeah. So I think it's a fascinating model.
Yeah, we just touched on that the other day, and I said, well, this is like a crystallization on steroids. You've got the Morkel method already being a very unique method in how it's not about what the researchers say. It always goes back to the participants, and their voices are coming out, their voices are being heard. Then if you take this, is it interactive?
Is it interactive? Interactive qualitative research.
Interactive qualitative research. And then you've got a double dose of the same goodness coming out. Again, throwing it back to the participants, making their voices heard. So I'm super excited about that. Very interesting.
Yeah, the good thing about the Morkel also is it's easy to analyze the data even if you are not part of that data collection. Because like myself, I used part of the Morkel method data which they collected on migrants, I think when they learned in 2009, and it became part of my research work. So I was able to analyze that data through the symbols, the visual symbols that the participants made. I could tell their experiences through those models. So to me, I find it user-friendly.
Because you add the visual component to it. Yeah. But you're actually lost if you don't know what the story is all about. You just see this little figurines and you don't know what is it all about.
Yeah, but what guides you is like the question that you would have asked them to make the model. So through that question, you can be able to pick it up. But maybe if you're not familiar with it, then that's where you can get lost. But to us, I think if you are given any kind of data from the local, you will be able to analyze.
I'm just so impressed with how people then use the information and construct something so deeply personal for you to gain access, but it becomes an external narrative that you can use as a way of obtaining more information, but to create creativity and the way that people can just use that information, I think is remarkable.
The other thing is that, like Shinga has said, that it's easy for analysis. You know, with the Moko method, even you as the researcher, when you are going through it, you get excited as well as the participants as well. So you'll find that it's not easy. Mostly now, if you were there, you were conducting the session, you'll find that it's like you can even put everything there and analyze the data within your memory because it's so real. It's full of fun. And it's exciting.
It makes an impact.
It makes an impact and it's stored in easily than if you were just doing talking and you some get bored, some do whatever. But then with the Moko method, and one thing that I realized that it needs somebody to be aware of is time. Because if you keep on enjoying what they are saying on and on, you're gonna take a long time and have a pile of data that you may find now a lot of data for you to work on. But really it's fun. It's fun and it's easy to go through it and it's easy to recall. Because you put the picture here, you take the words of the person, you think, you even see the face of this person, you go through it. The whole self of the researcher is within, it's in connection with the participant. And they all work together as friends. It brings friendship again within it brings a relationship between the participant and the researcher.
If we just go back to what Shinga said about how easy it is to sometimes understand it from an external point of view, from the first time that we started publishing information of the Moko method to how we started presenting it at conferences. The first time I presented at a conference was in 2007 with Professors in Cape Town. And it was just amazing how many people came to us and were impressed by this method in how do you do this, where does it come from, and exactly how do you get this information from this picture. And I'm thinking about what you're saying, it's very inspiring in terms of what we're going to do now in Cape Town again, to really dig into the method and show people what you can do from it. Because if we could start listing not only the publications in terms of the output, but just the different fields that have been involved in this. We've done studies with regional planning, with nursing, with disaster studies, disaster management. It's very open to input from everybody, and it's just wonderful to see how that is put out there and how people are intrigued by this.
We have this year for the ICP conference 25 students presenting on different aspects of the Moko method and relating to that social media research that we have conducted.
Yeah.
And I don't think I told you that this year, actually a week ago, I heard that the Moko method's trademark has been registered. So it's now on the team.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not registered for a title now because then I'd have to change. I remember how much trouble it is with the publication details, especially at Masakas. What other publications did you do with the Moko?
This year there's a lot of applications. I think most of your studies are applications of that, and most of them has been published. But this year there was another sole author article on the Moko method in terms of its use, in terms of the visual projections as a research methodology, being published in the Qualitative Research in Psychology journal. And there's another one that I plan mainly on the member checking, to use that as a way of illustrating the usefulness of the Morpho method in terms of member checking. That will be a long-standing article, but the one that I'm really, really excited about is the application of the Morpho in determining relational qualities, and to start building a theory about a relational theory specifically applied to intergenerational relationships, to understand that, and also to maybe introduce interventions based on my understanding of that theory. So my idea is to develop that for ICP as a presentation, but also then for IAGG to further make final revisions to it, and then in terms of publication, and hopefully at Seoul next year with you.
Yeah, I'm thinking that once you're in Seoul for the conference, it will be a good place to meet a few South Korean professors and start negotiating collaborative research between us, the two countries, and see how we can apply it in a different context yet again. Because as Leilani mentioned earlier, you can really see the cultural symbolism behind it, and I'm very curious to see what symbolism we might see from older persons from South Korea. So in terms of intergenerational relationships and developing an aging model perhaps for non-Western perspectives on aging, so we need to talk more.
I think the application value is just so fascinating. The more skillful you become as a researcher, I also think it's more applicable in different contexts, because it's based on the assumption that there's a social reality out there, that it's co-constructed, that it's not a social thing, it's a way of constructing the reality within the group of participants to find the meaning. And I think it can be applicable in any context with participants who want to participate in things. This is true.